Story 1. I've been lucky with not encountering entitled people up until recently. Honestly, I thought the internet exaggerated about these crazy, entitled individuals. I came to the sad truth that these people do exist, and my faith in humanity dropped just a bit more. And just a little more as I'm typing this, realizing some of these people are raising the next generation. Anyway, I work in the solar industry, mainly residential, as a service technician. Whenever something goes wrong with a solar photovoltaic system, I'm the person they send out to fix it. I've been doing this long enough to have the knowledge and skill to complete an entire installation by myself, within reason regarding roof pitch and module count. I went out with one of the crews for an installation as they were short a few guys. So, two of the other technicians I work with and I volunteered to help them out. It seemed like a pretty standard job, over 40 panels, not a steep roof. We should be in and out, and timing permitting, back at the shop by 4 or 5 p.m. We arrived at the house in what looked to be a pretty affluent neighborhood. The homeowner greeted us and even offered to grab us all breakfast. It was a good day so far. We set up an exclusion zone to prevent anyone from coming too close to the house as equipment, tools, etc. might fall off the roof. I was on the ground working on building the electrical portion of the system. I had my music playing, and everything was going well. I was in a good rhythm. Then, I noticed a child, who couldn't have been older than 7, dart past the red tape we put up and head toward a ladder to the roof, trying to play on it. Like a responsible person, I ran over and told the kid he couldn't play on the ladder and that the red tape was up to prevent him from getting hurt. And then, the moment you've all been waiting for, Karen appeared. She had it all: the haircut, the sunglasses, and the worst spray tan I've personally seen. It's summer, people. Just go and get some sun. Karen said, "Don't talk to my son like that. He just wants to play with your tools." I replied, "Ma'am, I can't allow him to play with our tools. Also, I can't have him or yourself pass that red tape. We put it up for your safety." "Oh, he'll be fine. Just tell your workers not to drop anything on him," she retorted. I, having lost a couple of brain cells from her response, said, "I can tell them not to drop anything all day, but that doesn't exclude the fact that accidents happen, and we cannot risk anyone who is a non-worker getting hurt. Now, please leave. This is an active work site. I can do as I please, and so can my son. We're friends with these people, and they let my son play in their yard. You should take a better direction when talking to a potential customer, Ma'am, until I have site plans for an installation on your house, how I speak to you is not a concern I have. If I sound cross, I apologize, but I have now told you twice that I cannot have you pass that red tape. So I am asking once again, please take your son and leave before either of you gets hurt. This is an active work site." She grabbed her child's arm and stormed off, tearing off a section of the exclusion zone tape and storming over to her house 2 doors down. I stood by our trailer to take a breather and began smoking. I try not to get stressed out much, as my job is already stressful, but I have zero patience for people with no common sense, especially if they're a parent. A little while later, the panels were prepped, and the roof was based out. For anyone who knows about solar installations, we used a rackless system instead of actual rails. We were just finishing up the electrical work before placing the panels into position. I was running between the basement and the outside area. I got back outside, connecting some wires, when I heard one of my guys yelling from the roof. "Hey kid, what are you doing?" That immediately caught my attention, as I thought the little kid had run past the exclusion zone tape again. But my eyes caught a guy running down the road with a solar panel in tow. Thankfully, he wasn't very fast as he was holding the panel. I darted over to this kid with one of our solar panels and attempted to rip it from his hands while simultaneously trying not to let it hit the ground. I was able to get my hands on it, but this kid actually put up a fight and tossed the solar panel, which put me in an awkward position. He landed a full-on punch to my chest. Not gonna lie, it did knock the wind out of me a little. But I went into full self-defense mode. The kid wanted to take another shot at me since I didn't completely go down. I immediately put him on the ground without throwing any punches. I didn't know how old this kid was, and I didn't want to get into trouble for hitting a minor, but I wasn't about to let this kid continue to hit me. I'm thankful I have a little background in amateur mixed martial arts and a police officer dad and older brother who have taught me stuff over the years. So I had the kid pinned on the ground, and out comes Karen, running and screaming like a banshee. The typical, "I'm calling the police," and "you just assaulted my son." I really asked myself if this was happening. I said, "Your son was stealing a solar panel and punched me in the chest." I had to defend myself. I told him to grab the solar panel. My neighbor said I could take one and try it out and see how I like it. At this point, my guys were at my aid, and I told them to call the cops and keep Karen away from me. As we waited for the cops to show up, this orange-skinned lunatic ranted about how she was going to sue all of us and other nonsense. The cops arrived about 10 minutes later. I removed myself from the kid, and the cops split us all up to take our statements. Karen went with her story about how her neighbor said she could borrow a solar panel and try it out. Even if he did say that, which he didn't, you can't just let someone take a solar panel because they still belong to the company. Most people who buy solar panels finance them and pay them off over the course of the next few years. It works a lot like financing a car. It got to the point where the cops asked if I wanted to press charges for the assault. The homeowner, whose house we were installing the panels on, had a security camera system and caught the incident on tape, so I gladly said yes. No idea when the court proceedings are going to take place. I honestly just want this over and done with. Edit. Just to clear up some questions in the comments. I found out the kid who attacked me was 18, legally an adult, so charges are being filed against him. The homeowner was present during most of the ordeal, and he told us he had never talked to that woman in his life. I have no idea what Karen's intentions were with the solar panel. If she planned to just slap it on her house, she's as foolish as she is entitled. Story 2. This is a story from 2015, back when I was a meat manager. I was recently reminded of this incident while explaining a similar topic to a fellow customer. As anyone in a retail position knows, the crazy customers come out near the holidays. Those customers can't be reasoned with no matter how much proof you show them. This is one of those stories. A bit of info. In my own time, I cut up wild game, such as deer, elk, and fish, in exchange for a share of the meat. So I have a few game wardens on speed dial to make sure the kills and tags are legal. This is pertinent to the story. Around Christmas of 2015, I was preparing prime roast orders for the holidays, as I had been doing for the past few days, when my meat clerk said a customer was looking for a form of caviar that he hadn't heard of before. I went out to see what help I could offer. The entitled mother, tall, blonde, about 40, with a Karen-cut shoulder-length hair, and 2 children, was rude from the start. "Oh good, perhaps you can help me. This employee has no idea what he is doing." I said, "Yes, miss. What type of caviar are you looking to order?" The entitled mother replied, "I'm looking for beluga caviar from the Caspian Sea. I bought it here a few years ago, and it was amazing. I haven't been able to find it anywhere." I responded, "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but you must be mistaken. We have never carried beluga caviar. Last I heard, beluga caviar has been banned in the United States since 2005. There was a hybrid farm certified in Florida in 2016. One of the entitled kids shouted at full volume, "Mom, look at the fish," while sticking his fingers against the glass case. The entitled mother shushed him, saying, "Can't you see I'm talking? That's impossible. I picked it up here a few years back for $100. You can't fool me." I said, "Ma'am, please keep your voice down and refrain from using harsh language. This is a family-friendly store. Ma'am, when beluga caviar was last sold in 2005, it was priced at $400, $600 per ounce. Once again, we have never sold beluga caviar. Perhaps it was a different sturgeon caviar. We have some that are in the $100 price range." The entitled mother replied, "I don't believe this nonsense. I know what I bought. My husband is on the city council, and I'm going to tell him about this and get you shut down." At this point, I walked away to call security. She had left when I returned. I didn't think much of it afterward, just chalked it up to another crazy customer. A few weeks later, the same entitled mother came back, but this time to gloat. She said, "I came to show you that we were able to get it. The price was ridiculous, but we have photos showing it is the real deal." She had photos of not only the fish that was caught and killed for the eggs, but also a video of 3 men catching it and gutting it. The weight, cost, shipping ticket, proof, and pictures of them eating it were all there. She was also there to place an order for a roast. I asked the clerk to get the order and request an address under the premise that it was over a $200 order. I went to the back and called the game warden, Fish and Wildlife. I reported to the store manager what I had been shown and had the approval to report it. The game warden came in, asking for the entitled mother's information, and it was freely given. I heard from the same game warden a few months later when calling about a few Chinook salmon a man brought in. The entitled mother was given a search warrant and was found to have illegal beluga caviar in her freezer after lab tests, I'd guess. I was told that they were fined $1 or $200 for the caviar, but still had a pending trial that could charge them up to $25,000 in jail time for their actions that led to the death of an endangered species, international shipping of illegal goods, and a few other charges I don't quite remember. I offered to be a witness, but as they had the pictures, product, and messages between the sellers and the entitled mother, they had plenty of evidence for a conviction. Edit. I forgot to mention. The entitled dad did work in the city council, but not as a council member. He was a manager in the public works area wastewater. I can't imagine he was able to keep that job, as the government city higher-ups generally don't tolerate a large criminal background. Edit 2. I'm glad everyone learned about the beluga sturgeon. I honestly feel bad for the children who have parents like these. I always wonder how the kids are doing after one of the parents ends up in legal trouble. Story 3. I was reminded of this occurrence by a vendor post earlier, but this was a very happy ending story, at least for me. I was cruising around my regular grocery store about a month ago, masked up and just trying to hit the last few items on my list. I wanted to try a new dish that week, experimental quarantine cooking, and it called for a can of shrimp, which was not something I'd bought before. I headed over to where the canned tuna and salmon were, hoping this would be an easy find. There were two men crouched there, going over a plan, a diagram that I recognized from my own retail history. I was standing back a bit, trying to give them space and scanning the shelves over their heads. "Excuse me," I started. "Do you know where the canned shrimp are?" One of the guys looked up, then stood from his crouch and turned toward me, starting to say, "I'm sorry, I don't work here." Just then, I spotted his bright red lanyard, not the store's green. I proceeded into Canadian apology mode, and so did he. "Oh, I'm so sorry. You're a vendor." "I am a vendor. I'm sorry." "Oh no, really, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have bothered you. Planograms are so awful." No, I'm sorry. You couldn't have known." We went back and forth a little more, wished each other well, and I headed off embarrassed and planning to hit up another store later on. I made my way to checkout after grabbing my last couple of items, and was standing on my allotted green footprints in the socially distanced roped-off line to get to a free cashier. I hear, "Wait, wait," called out and looked up to see Mr. Vendor racing down an aisle towards me. He was grinning. "I found the last two on the back of the shelf," he said, and held out 2 cans of shrimp. I squealed and bounced, my typical happy reaction, and took them with gushing thanks. He actually tipped his ball cap to me, his cheeks red either from running through the store looking for me or because I was squealing and bouncing, and that was embarrassing. He said, "Glad to be of service, miss." What do you say to that? I kind of just blinked at him for a minute, and we both kind of looked at our feet. Then they called out the next register, and it was my turn, so I said, "Thanks again, you're my hero today," and pushed off my cart to the register. It totally made my day.